In this session, we will be discussing about the three-dimensional viewing. We'll be starting with the next module of our syllabus, that is module 4, where we are going to discuss the concepts related to 3D viewing. So what do you mean by 3D viewing? So what do we mean by types of the different methods of 3D viewing? We have methods such as parallel projection and orthogonal or perspective projections and so on. We'll also be looking into what do you mean by three-dimensional viewing pipeline, so followed by the three-dimensional viewing coordinates. So and then we'll also be looking into the different types of projections, okay, orthographic projections, and along with that we'll also be discussing something called as a perspective projection. So that is one chapter of your module 4. It's all about three-dimensional viewing. Okay, so let's continue. So three-dimensional viewing. So we are basically trying to view a 3D object. That is what we mean by three-dimensional viewing. Now to obtain a display of three-dimensional world coordinate scene, we need to first set up a coordinate reference frame for the viewing or the camera parameters. The first thing that we need to do when we want to view an object in 3 dimensions, we need to set up a coordinate reference frame for the viewing, which is also known as the coordinate the camera parameters. As it is shown in this particular diagram, we need to set up the camera parameter. So camera parameter specifies, or the camera coordinate reference frame specifies that this is the point from where we are going to look at a given object. This is the viewing position from where we are going to look at an object. So which view are we going to capture? Whether it is the front view, whether it is the side view of an object, whether it is the top view of the object, and so on. So the first step to obtain the display of a 3D world coordinate scene is to set up a camera or the viewing position. Now this coordinate reference defines the position and the orientation of the view plane that corresponds to the camera film plane. Now the coordinate reference for the viewing that we are going to set, it defines the position and the orientation of the view plane, which is also called as a projection plane. Now it is on the view plane that the object will be viewed. It's something like the camera films which are used in earlier cameras. So we are going to capture a real world object. We are going to capture a real world scene from a 3D environment onto a 2D film. That was how the earlier cameras used to work. So this is something similar to that. Now the coordinate reference frame for the viewing that we have specified, it defines something called as a view plane. It is on this view plane that the objects will be projected onto. Okay. So the coordinate reference frame defines the position and the orientation of the view plane from where we can actually view the objects, or from where the objects will be projected to. We can generate the view of an object on the output device either in the wireframe form, or we can apply the lighting and surface rendering techniques to obtain the realistic shading of the visible surface projections. Now there are different ways in which we can uh, project, or we can view the output on the output device for a 3D object. It can be the wireframe structure. I think we all know what do you mean by wireframe structure. It is a structure that is formed by connecting multiple line segments that represents only the outline of the given 3D object. It is not having any surface rendering. We are basically drawing the skeletal structure of a given 3D object. You can call it something like that. That is called as a wireframe structure. So we can generate the view of an object on the output device in the wireframe from, that is only by drawing the outlines of a given object, or we can also apply the lighting and surface rendering techniques to obtain a realistic shading of the visible surface projections. So you can either view the 3D objects using its wireframe representation, or we can also apply the lighting and surface rendering techniques to obtain the realistic shading of the visible surface parameters. So we have seen how to apply, what are the different types of lighting we can apply. We can specify the ambient light, the type of diffuse reflection, the type of specular reflection, right? So how to specify the shininess for a given object. We have specified all these things. So same things can be applied for a given 3D objects if we want to draw it with proper lighting and surface rendering. Now there are two methods for three-dimensional viewing. A very important terms you need to remember. There are two ways in which we can project a given object onto a view plane. The first method is called as a parallel projection, and the second method that we have is called as a perspective projection. So parallel projection is used for getting the description of the solid object onto a view plane to project the points on the object surface along the parallel line. This is a diagram over here. Okay, it specifies an example for parallel projection, which is used for getting the description of the solid object onto a view plane to project the points on the object surface along the parallel lines. The projection of the points on the objects will be always along the parallel lines in case of parallel projection. Hence the name is parallel projection, right? So if we project these vertices here, P1 and P2, onto the view plane, the lines that are basically the projections of these vertices will always be parallel to each other. So parallel projection is used for getting the description of solid object onto a view plane to project points on the object surface along the parallel lines. So no matter how you view the object, it always appears the same. There will be uh, the projection lines will always be parallel to each other. That is a speciality of this parallel projection. So this diagram over here is an example for parallel projection. The next type of method for 3D viewing is called as a perspective projection. Now in perspective projection, so it projects the points to a view plane along a converging path. That is very important. So here it projects the points onto a view plane along a convergent path, or the converging path. So as you can see in this particular diagram, perspective projection causes the object farther from the viewing position to be displayed smaller than the objects of the same size that are nearer to the viewing position. As you can see here, the projections of these points P1 and P2 on this view plane is along the lines that are converging at this particular convergence point. So there was no concept of convergence point in case of parallel projection. Whereas when it comes to the perspective projection, it projects points to the view plane along the convergent point. These convergent paths basically converge at this convergence point. It is used to get a more natural viewing. How does a human eye work? So it's basically based on this principle. So we can get realistic perspectives of the objects using this perspective projection. Okay, we can actually understand the perspective of maybe the distance of the objects or the different views. The objects may appear different if we select different perspective of viewing. So here the way in which the object will be projected onto the view plane depends upon how you are going to view the object or from where you are going to view the object. So they based upon the different perspectives that you have selected, the objects may be projected differently. So that is the perspective projection. So in parallel projection, it's used for getting the description of the solid object onto the view plane to project the points on the object surface along the parallel lines. Whereas in case of perspective projection, we don't have the parallel lines here. It projects the points onto a view plane along the converging path which converge at a particular convergence point. Right, so that is a perspective projection and the parallel projection, which are the two methods for three-dimensional viewing. So in case of parallel projection, the projection lines will always be parallel to each other, whereas in case of perspective projection, the projection lines are going to converge at a convergence point. Now let us look at different techniques used for displaying 3D objects, some of the different ways in which we can display the 3D objects. First thing that we need to remember, first concept that we have is called as a depth cueing. Let us see what do you mean by depth cueing. So depth cueing is a simple method for indicating depth with wireframe displays by varying the brightness of line segments according to their distance from the viewing. Now suppose we are going to draw a 3D object using its wireframe method as it is shown on this particular diagram here. So what do you observe is, how do we differentiate between the lines which are closer to us and how do we identify the lines which are away from us? If there is no concept of depth cueing, it becomes very difficult for us to analyze which portion of the object is towards us and which portion of the object is away from us. So depth cueing is a method for indicating the depth with wireframe display. This diagram that is shown here is an example for wireframe display where we are going to draw only the lines here. So here we are varying the brightness of the line segments according to your distances from the viewing. Okay, so the brightness of the lines which are nearer to the viewer will be of more intensity than the lines which are farther from the viewer. So in depth queuing, so it's a method for indicating the depth with wireframe displays by varying the brightness of the line segments according to their distance from the viewing. A wireframe object displayed with the depth queuing so that the brightness of the line decreases from the front of the object to the back. As we are moving from the front of the object towards its back, the brightness of the lines goes on decreasing. The lines that are closest to the viewing positions are displayed with the highest intensity, and the lines that are farther away are displayed with decreasing intensity. That is what we call as depth queuing. It is basically used to understand which part of the object is closer to us and which part of the object is away from us, used along with the wireframe displays. Whenever we are displaying a 3D object using its wireframe representation, in order to understand which of the lines in the wireframe display are closer to us, we can make use of this concept called as the depth queuing. Okay, now let us say how can we identify or how to understand which are the lines that will be visible and which are the lines which may be hidden. Okay, so identifying visible lines and surfaces. So one approach to identify visible lines and surfaces is simply to highlight the visible lines or to display them in a different color. Okay, when you are modeling the given object, so one way of identifying the visible lines and the surfaces is simply to highlight the visible lines or to display them in a different color. So another technique commonly used for engineering drawings is to display the invisible lines or the non-visible lines as dashed lines. So wherever we have the dashed lines, that indicates these lines will not be displayed in the output. Or we could simply remove the non-visible lines from the display. If you don't want to draw them, you can remove the invisible lines from the display or the non-visible lines from the display. But if you want to have an understanding that there are some lines which are non-visible, you can represent those lines using dashed lines and so on. So these are some of the techniques which we can use for drawing the visible lines and the surfaces. Then we have something called a surface rendering. We set the lighting conditions by specifying the color and the location of the light sources, and we can also set the background illumination effects. Okay, so for proper surface rendering, we need to have proper light conditions. We need to set the light conditions by specifying the color and the location of the light sources. In the previous discussions, we had understood the different types of light sources. We have point light sources, infinite distance light sources, directional light sources, and so on. So we need to specify the intensity of the light sources as well as the location of these light sources. And we can also set the background illumination effects. We can have a certain color for the ambient light, a certain color for the diffuse light, a certain color for the specular light, and so on. The surface properties of the objects include whether a surface is transparent or opaque and whether the surface is smooth or rough. So the properties of the surface also is very critical in determining what is the amount of light that is reflected from it, whether the surface is transparent, whether the rough surface is a rough surface or whether it is smooth. Accordingly, we will get the lights which are reflected of the surface. So we set the values for parameters to model the surfaces such as glass, plastic, wood grain patterns, and bumpy appearance on an orange. So these are all different surface parameters we can set to specify what type of surface is it that we are going to model or what type of surface is it we are going to render in our output screen. So for proper surface rendering, we need to specify the proper lighting conditions by specifying the light color and the light position along with the proper background illumination effects. So also the surface properties matters, whether the surface is rough, smooth, whether the surface is transparent or opaque. All these factors will be considered while we are rendering a given surface for a given 3D object. So that is about the surface rendering. And then we have something called as exploded and cutaway views. So while we are drawing or while we are creating these 3D objects or 3D images onto a screen, so we can also have something called as exploded and cutaway views. So exploded and cutaway views of such objects can then be used to show the internal structure and the relationship of the object parts. So the diagram on the left here, so this diagram here, it shows us an exploded view of an all-terrain vehicle. Okay, All the different paths are clearly visible. So we, just by looking at this particular image, we can make out what are the parts that make up or that form this particular vehicle, the all-terrain vehicle. An alternative to this exploding view, or an alternative to this exploding an object into its component part, is something called as a cutaway view, which removes the part of the visible surfaces to show the internal structure. The diagram on the right here, this diagram here of a Jeep, represents a cutaway view of the Jeep, so that the hood is basically cut away, so we can see the internal components such as the engine, maybe the connecting rods, the axles, and so on, right? So this is called as a cutaway view, and the first view on the left we call it as an exploded view. So both these views can be used to show the internal structure of a given 3D object and the relationship between the different parts of a given object. So these are some of the techniques we can use for uh, drawing or viewing a 3D object. So we can use the concept of depth cueing. We can use the concept of using dashed lines or highlighting the lines which are clearly visible to the user. We can use the concept of surface rendering as well as exploded and cutaway views of a given 3D object. So these are some of the concepts we need to understand before we try to view a given 3D objects. Now let us proceed to understand the three-dimensional viewing pipeline. So in the previous module we had discussed the 2D viewing pipeline. This is an extension of that basically, or which is similar to that, but only difference is we are going to apply it to the three-dimensional object. Okay, so these are the sequence of steps in the three-dimensional viewing pipeline. Let us say we are going to model a cube and a sphere. Okay, let us say we want to draw a cube and a sphere. We need to first model the cube individually, and we need to then model the sphere. So modeling of these objects are done using the modeling coordinates. Okay, we are going to model the given individual objects in a given scene using the modeling coordinates. So we are going to apply the modeling transformation to this modeling coordinates to convert them into the world coordinates. The first step in the 3D viewing pipeline is to convert the modeling coordinates by applying the modeling transformation to the world coordinates. So in the world coordinates, you're going to construct a scene. A sphere will be placed with respect to the cube, or the cube will be placed in front of the sphere, and so on. So creating a scene composed of different 3D objects, we call it as a world coordinates. So from the modeling coordinates, we are going to apply the modeling transformation to transform these modeling coordinates to the world coordinates. Now these world coordinates should be viewed on the viewing plane, right? So we need to apply the viewing transformation to these world coordinates to transform them to the viewing coordinates. Okay, we are going to convert the world coordinates to the viewing coordinates by applying the viewing transformation. It is using this viewing coordinates, the objects will be projected onto the view plane. So whatever view plane concept we discussed earlier, so on the view plane we are going to use the viewing coordinates. So the world coordinates will be transformed to the viewing coordinate using the viewing transformation. Now the viewing coordinates needs to be placed within a three-dimensional viewing volume or three-dimensional projection region, or a three-dimensional we call it as the view volume. So that is done by applying the projection transformation. Okay, so whatever projection region that we create, these viewing coordinates needs to be converted to the projection coordinates and then placed in this uh, projection region. Okay, that is what we call as a projection transformation, which is used to convert the viewing coordinates to the projection coordinates. Once we have transformed the viewing coordinates to the projection transformation, we need to apply normalization to this particular projection coordinate as well as apply the clipping. Identify which portions of the objects are lying outside these boundary areas and clip them. That is happening in this particular phase, and also normalizing these projection coordinates within a given range, maybe from 0 to 1 or from -1 to +1. So that is happening as a part of this phase, that is normalization, transformation, and clipping phase. So after applying this normalization transformation, the projection coordinates will be converted to the normalized coordinates. And to this normalized coordinates, we are going to apply the viewport transformation, which is going to convert these normalized coordinates to the device coordinates. So these are the sequence of transformations which are a part of the 3D viewing pipeline. So initially we have the modeling coordinates, and with the objects, individual objects are modeled, so they are converted to world coordinates by applying the modeling transformation. This is the first step. The next step is to convert these world coordinates to weaving coordinates by applying the weaving transformation. So the coordinates on the view plane that we get, the projections that we are going to get on the view plane, so these are called as these basically use the weaving coordinates. And the next step in the three-dimensional weaving pipeline, we need to transform the weaving coordinates to the projection coordinates. That is achieved by applying the projection transformation. So the projections in a given 3D space will be done by using this projection coordinates after applying the projection transformation to the weaving coordinates. Once we have the projection coordinates, these projection coordinates will be normalized to a given range, maybe from -1 to +1 or from 0 to 1, by applying the normalization transformation and also by applying the clipping. Whichever portions of the objects that are outside the boundaries of the projection region, they will be clipped off, and you are going to convert the projection coordinates to the normalized coordinates by applying the normalization transformation and clipping. Once you have the normalized coordinates, they will be converted to the device coordinates by applying the viewport transformation. So these are the sequence of transformations that we need to have in a three-dimensional weaving pipeline. So all the way from modeling coordinates, the end product will be the device coordinates. From the modeling coordinates, we are going to convert it to world coordinates. From the world coordinates, we are going to convert it to the weaving coordinates. From the weaving coordinates, we are going to convert it to the projection coordinates. And from the projection coordinates, we are going to convert it to the normalized coordinates. From there, we are going to convert it to the device coordinates. Okay, this is the three-dimensional weaving pipeline. Now let us see what are the three-dimensional weaving coordinate parameters. So what are the things we need to consider for the three-dimensional weaving coordinates? So whenever we are talking about the three-dimensional weaving, we need to specify the position for the viewer. We call this position as P naught, or which we can also call this particular position as the origin of the weaving coordinate system. Okay, the origin of this weaving coordinate system given by the point P naught, it's a point from where we are going to view a given object. Okay, so this is the point of origin of the weaving coordinate system. So with respect to the world coordinate system, so we have two coordinate systems here. One is the world coordinate system and the weaving coordinate system. The origin of the weaving coordinate system is the point from where we are going to view a given object, and this particular origin is given by the point here given as x0, y0 and z0. Okay, now the first thing that we need to consider in this three-dimensional weaving coordinate system is the normal or the view plane normal vector. Suppose we have a view plane on which we are going to view the projections of the given objects here. Now we need to first consider a normal vector called as a view plane normal vector, which is normal to this particular view plane. So there are two advantages of this view plane normal vector. First thing is it is in the direction of the z view. So if you get the direction of this view plane normal vector, we can also get the direction of the z-axis of the weaving coordinates. It is in the direction of the z-axis of the weaving coordinates. So we can get the direction of the z-axis of the weaving coordinates if we know the direction of the view plane normal vector. Second, very important thing is we can also understand the orientation of this view plane. Okay, so this view plane normal vector n, so it gives us the orientation of the view plane as well as the direction of the z view axis, the z axis of the weaving coordinates. Okay, so p naught here, it is the origin for the weaving coordinates. The z axis of this particular weaving coordinate is in the direction of the view plane normal vector, which is a vector which gives us the orientation of the view plane. So we can also place this normal vector in the direction from a selected reference point P reference on a given surface to the weaving coordinate origin P naught. Okay, so this is an example for specifying the view plane normal vector n as a direction from the reference point P reference, that is a selected reference point on a surface called as a P reference, to the weaving coordinate origin P naught. So this is one way to specify, one more way to specify the view plane normal vector by selecting a direction from a selected reference point P naught, P reference to the weaving coordinate origin P naught. Okay, this is one more way in which we can specify the direction for the view plane normal vector. Now we need to consider one more parameter while we are specifying the three-dimensional weaving coordinate, that is a parameter or a scalar parameter called as ZVP. VP stands for the view plane. We can specify the position of the view plane by altering the value of this ZVP. If the value of this ZVP is equal to 0, that indicates the view plane is at the origin of the viewing coordinates. If the value of ZVP is greater than 0, then this view plane is placed on the positive Z view axis. If it is negative, then this view plane will be placed along the negative Z axis. So by looking at the parameter ZVP, we can specify the position, or we can understand the position of the view plane. Remember, this view plane is like a projection. It's like a projector screen on a LCD projector where we are going to project something. So whatever objects that we are going to draw, that will be projected onto this view plane. Okay, so it's on this view plane that we are going to project the projections of the 3D objects. So we need to have a view plane normal vector called as n. We need to have a scalar parameter called as ZVP, which is used to specify the position of the view plane. Where are we going to place this view plane along the Z axis? So the normal vector is used to find the orientation of the view plane, whereas the ZVP vector is used to identify the position or the location of this view plane along the Z axis. We need to consider one more vector here called as the view up vector. So once we have chosen a view plane normal vector n, we can set the direction for the view up vector v. Okay, so we need to consider one more vector called as the vector v that gives us the view up direction or the y-axis for the viewing coordinate position. So once we have chosen the view plane normal vector n as shown in this particular diagram, we need to also set one more vector called the view up vector, which is represented by the symbol v. Now this view up vector is used to establish the positive direction for the y view axis. The y axis of the viewing coordinator is specified in the direction of this view up vector. Usually this vector v is defined by selecting a position relative to the world coordinate origin, so that the direction of the view up vector is from the world coordinate origin to this particular selected position. Right? So usually we select a particular position relative to the world coordinate origin, so that the direction of the view up vector is from the world coordinate origin to the selected position. Now since the view plane normal vector n defines the direction for the z view axis, the vector v, the view plane vector, should be perpendicular to n. So the view plane normal vector n acts like a z axis for the viewing coordinate, and the view up vector v acts like the y axis for the viewing coordinates. Now since the view plane normal vector n defines the direction for the z view axis, and the view up vector v is used to obtain the direction for the y view axis, now there is one thing that we need to determine, that is the direction for the x view axis. So what should be the direction for the x axis of the viewing coordinate? So we have already got the value for the z axis by looking into the direction of the view plane normal vector, that is n. We already got the direction for the y axis of the viewing coordinate by looking into the direction of the view up vector v. So now using these two vectors, we need to determine the direction for the x axis of the viewing coordinates. So using the input value for the vectors n and the vector v, that is a view plane normal vector and the view up vector, we can compute the third vector u, that is perpendicular to both n and v. So this vector u that we are going to find using the vectors n and v defines the direction for the positive x view axis, which is the x axis for the viewing coordinates. Let us see how can we determine the value of the vector u in the direction of the x view axis. We determine the correct direction for u by taking the vector cross product of the vector v and the vector n so as to form a right-handed viewing frame. So we consider the product of the view plane normal vector n and the view up vector v so as to form a right-handed viewing frame. The vector cross product of the vectors n and u also produces the adjusted value for the vector v, which is perpendicular to both n and u along the positive y view axis. Now these procedures here, using these procedures, we obtain the set of unit vectors for a right-handed viewing coordinate system. The unit vector along the normal vector n is obtained by using this particular division here, or it is used by using this particular equation. So vector n divided by its magnitude, it yields three values. nx, ny and nz, which are the unit vectors in the directions of the unit axis vectors, or these are the unit axis vectors as we can call them. Normal vector along x-axis, y-axis and z-axis. Remember, uppercase n specifies the actual view plane normal vector. Lowercase n specifies a unit vector in that particular direction. Okay. Similarly, we can obtain a unit vector in the direction of view as the cross product of the view plane, the view up vector v cross the unit normal vector n divided by the magnitude. So that gives us unit vectors along the unit axes ux, uy and uz. Similarly, the unit vector along the view up direction is given as a cross product of these two unit vectors n cross unit vector u, which gives us vx, vy and vz. Using this u, v and n, u represents the x-axis for the weaving coordinates, v represents the y-axis for the weaving coordinate, and n represents the z-axis for the weaving coordinate. Using these three axes or using these three vectors, we can form something called as a UVN weaving coordinate reference frame. So u vector u, or the unit vector u, is in the direction of the x view axis. Unit vector v, it is in the direction of the y view axis, and the unit vector n, it is in the direction of the z view axis. So this is what we call as the UVN weaving coordinate reference frame, where u is a unit vector along the x-axis, vector v is called as a view up vector, and vector n is the normal vector to a given surface. So the coordinate system formed with these unit vectors, what are these unit vectors, u, v and n, is often described as the UVN weaving coordinate reference frame. So in the exams you may get a question, explain the UVN reference frames. We'll have to explain these things. The three vectors that are used in the three-dimensional weaving coordinates. We have the surface normal vector n, the view up vector v, and the cross product of these vector v and n is going to give us a vector u. So by considering the unit vectors along these three directions, so we will get three unit vectors, vector u, vector v and vector n, which is used to form the weaving coordinate reference frame. Right? This is what we call as the UVN weaving coordinate reference frame. So let us just go back. So initially we have a surface normal vector n, which gives us the orientation of the view plane and also the direction of the z view axis, that is the z axis of the weaving coordinates. So using this z axis, we are going to determine one more vector called as a view up vector, which gives us the direction of the y axis of the weaving coordinates. We call that particular vector as the view up vector v, right? We call that particular vector as the view up vector v. So using these two vectors, we need to determine one more vector along the direction of the x view axis. We call that particular vector as the vector u. So we are going to determine the unit vectors along the normal n, unit vectors along the x axis and the unit vectors along the y axis. So using this u, v and n, which are the unit vectors, we form a coordinate reference frame called as a UVN weaving reference coordinate frame. Okay, weaving coordinate reference frame. Now, a very important concept, how to transform from the world to the weaving coordinates. Okay, so how do we transform from the world coordinates to the weaving coordinates? Let us look at the sequence of transformations that we need to go through to convert the coordinates from the world coordinates to the weaving coordinates. So in the three-dimensional weaving pipeline, the first step after the scene has been constructed is to transfer the object descriptions to the weaving coordinate reference frame using the following sequence of transformations. So we need to apply two transformations to convert the coordinates from the world coordinates to the weaving coordinates. First step is translate the weaving coordinate origin to the origin of the world coordinates. That is the first step. We need to translate the weaving coordinate origin to the world coordinate origin. And the second step is to apply the rotations to align the x view, y view and z view axis with the world xw, yw and zw axis respectively. So these are the two steps we need to follow. First step is to translate the weaving coordinate origin to the world coordinate origin. Once we have done that, we need to rotate the axis so that the x view, y view and z view axis are aligned with the xw, yw and zw axis. Let us look at this diagram, you'll understand it better. First step is we need to translate this weaving coordinate origin to the world coordinate origin. That is the first step. We can call it as a transformation T. So once we have translated the weaving coordinate origin P0 to the world coordinate origin, we need to rotate these X view, Y view and Z view axes so that they are aligned along the axis XW, YW and ZW. So two transformations we need to consider for transformation from the world coordinate to the viewing coordinates. Now let us look at each of these steps individually. First step is to translate the viewing coordinate origin to the world coordinate origin. So the viewing coordinate origin is at the world coordinate position x0, y0, z0. So therefore the matrix for translating the viewing coordinate origin to the world coordinate origin is given by the matrix, a 4 by 4 matrix again. It's the translation matrix 1 0 0 minus x 0, 0 1 0 minus y 0 and 0 0 1 minus z 0, 0 0 0 1. This is a 4 by 4 matrix which represents the translation of the viewing coordinate origin x 0 y 0 z 0 to the world coordinate origin 0 0 0. Hence the translation terms or the translation parameters is given as minus x 0 minus y 0 and minus z 0. This is the translation matrix that we need to consider. That is the first step. Second step is the rotation transformation, right? For the rotation transformation, we can use the unit vectors u, v and n to form the composite rotation matrix that superimposes the viewing axis onto the world frame. So the rotation matrix we can consider here is ux, uy and uz, which are the unit axis vectors for a given UVN reference frame. Similarly, Vx, Vy, Vz 0, Nx, Ny, Nz 0, 0, 0, 0, 1. Ux represents the x-axis along the waving coordinate. The vector V represents the view of vector which represents the y-axis of the waving waving coordinates, and we have the now surface normal vector n, which represents the z-axis of a given waving coordinate system. So here the matrix R consists the components which are the components of the UVN axis vectors. Now to convert from the waving coordinates to the world coordinates, we need to concatenate these two matrices, and the composite matrix that we get after multiplying the transformation matrix with the rotation matrix, and the transformation sequence is given something like this: MWC, VC. We are going to convert from the world coordinate to the waving coordinate. That is represented something like this is equal to R dot T. We first perform the translation and then the rotation, and this is the composite matrix that we get after multiplying the translation matrix with the rotation matrix. The coordinate transformation matrix is then obtained as the product of the preceding translation and the rotation matrices which we discussed here. So this is the translation matrix and this is the rotation matrix. So after multiplying these two matrices, this is the product matrix that we are going to get. So R into T. So Ux, Uy, Uz. The fourth parameter is minus U dot P naught, which is equal to minus X naught into Ux minus Y naught into Uy and minus Z naught into Uz, right? So this is the fourth element of the first row. So this is the fourth element of the second row, and this is the fourth element of the third row. So Ux, Uy, Uz, you know what are these things? These are the unit axis vectors, or the components of the vector u along xyz, components of the vector v along xyz, and the components of the vector n along xyz. Whereas the fourth column here, the first element in the first row of this particular column, is given as the product of the individual translation terms, that is x0, y0 and z0 into the individual unit axis vectors, right? Similarly, for this minus v dot p naught, it is the product of the individual translation terms, that is minus x0, minus y0 and minus z0 into these vx, vy and vz. Similarly, minus n dot p naught gives us minus x0, minus y0 and minus z0 into nx, ny and nz respectively. So this is the transformation matrix that we obtain as a product of the translation matrix and the rotation matrix. So in today's session, let us briefly understand what are the things we have discussed in this particular session. We started with what do you mean by the three-dimensional viewing. The first thing that we need to do whenever we are specifying a three-dimensional viewing is we need to set the camera parameters, or the coordinate reference frame for viewing, using which we are going to place a view plane. It is on this view plane the projections are going to be captured on. It's something similar to the camera film plane. And after that, we discussed the two methods for three-dimensional viewing. We have something called as parallel projection and perspective projection. So as shown in this particular diagram, parallel projections are used for getting the description of the solid object onto the view plane to project the points on the object surface along the parallel lines. These projection lines will always be parallel to each other in case of parallel projection, whereas in case of perspective projection, the points are projected onto the view plane along the converging paths which merge at this convergence point. So it gives us a more realistic view or realistic perspective of the objects depending upon how we are looking at a given object or from where we are viewing a given object. Then we discuss some of the concepts we need to consider or understand before we try to view a 3D object. First concept we discussed something was called as a depth cueing, which was a method for indicating the depth in the wireframe displays by varying the brightness of the line segments according to the distances from the viewing. And we also identified what do you mean by or how to view the visible lines and surfaces, or how to differentiate between visible lines and the lines that will not be visible. And we also discussed how to understand the surface rendering. So for surface rendering, we need to have the proper lighting conditions and the proper color, as well as the location of the light sources, as well as the surface properties also needs to be considered whenever we are trying to render a given surface. And then we understood what do you mean by exploded and cutaway views, right? So exploded views and the cutaway views both are used to show the internal structure and the relationship of the individual object parts for a given complex 3D object. Then you understood the three-dimensional viewing pipeline. So here initially the modeling coordinates will be converted to the world coordinates, which will be converted to the viewing coordinates. From the viewing coordinates we are going to apply the projection transformation to convert it to the projection coordinates, which will then be transformed to the normalized coordinates, and ultimately it will be transformed to the device coordinates. These are the sequence of steps we discussed in the three-dimensional viewing pipeline. Then we understood what do you mean by three-dimensional viewing coordinate parameters. So we have the surface normal vector n, we have the parameter called as ZVP, which is used to position the view plane along the Z axis. We have one more vector called as vector V in the view up, which is called as a view up vector in the direction of the Y axis of the viewing coordinate frame. Now using the vector V and vector N, we can find one more vector called as a vector U in the direction of the X axis of the viewing coordinates. So then we understood the transformation from the world coordinate to the viewing coordinates. Remember there are two steps. First step is to translate the viewing coordinate origin to the world coordinate origin, or the world coordinate origin of the world coordinate system. Once you've done that, second transformation is to apply rotations to align the x view, y view and z view so as to align them along the xw, yw and zw axis. The translation matrix is something like this: 1 0 0 minus x 0 0 1 0 minus y 0 and 0 0 1 minus z 0 0 0 0 1. And this is the rotation matrix which we discussed earlier. So the coordinate transformation matrix that we obtain after multiplying the translation matrix with the rotation matrix is something like this. Okay, so this is what we discussed in today's class.